We're going to go ahead and get started. Thanks everybody for joining, I guess, on a Monday evening for a holiday, at least here in the States, here from Texas. We're going to talk a little bit about covering some basics, a little bit of review for how to use the app, make sure we give a chance for anybody to ask any questions with any challenges that they're having and go through those. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how you can take advantage of the stats and the analysis, how we use them to kind of guide our practice and guide some of the things that we do with the app. So once you actually get some of the shot tracking, get some rounds under your belt, what do you do with it? And how do we use it to actually guide practice and get better? So with that, while we were waiting for this thing to load, I was letting the simulator kind of run in the background to do some, auto shot and give a kind of a snapshot of how the app does the auto shot, so we can go through a few shortcuts and remind everybody of some of the capabilities of the app so that you get the most out of it, and so that it really adds to your golf experience rather than getting you bogged down and trying to manage an app and your golf game. I think one of the things I'll say, particularly for our Apple Watch users, and even with the Apple Watch, without the Apple Watch, the goal of V1 Game is not to interfere with your golf, but to track it and help you get better at golf. So if at any point you find the app frustrating on the golf course or find yourself having to pay too much attention to it, then likely there's some ways that we can improve that. So if you find yourself in that situation, that's where you should absolutely be reaching out to us, either through intercom or email or our support channels. Tell us where you're struggling, and we should be able to get you set up and going in a much more efficient manner so it doesn't interfere with your golf. In fact, myself, I know when I play, I do have an Apple Watch, but I tend to start my round kind of like you'll see here, it'll be tracking me. I actually put the phone to sleep. I usually put it in my back pocket and I play. I use the watch to get distances, but other than that, I really don't pull the phone out or use the app at all the entire time I'm playing. I let the auto shot kind of do its thing. And it's a minimal impact on my round of golf. I don't think about it at all really till I'm done. Now there's multiple ways to get there, but point being, if you find yourself frustrated, then there's probably ways we can improve your experience on the golf course. So make sure to reach out to us and let us know where you're struggling. So few quick things or review, I guess, that we wanted to go through to make sure that everybody kind of has awareness of some sneaky shortcuts we have in here that are going to make your life a little easier. And so I'll start with some kind of quick functions or shortcuts that are kind of hidden within the app. Let's say you're playing and you want to zoom into the green to look around the green, maybe to get yardages to front, middle, back, or see kind of what hazards might await you close to the green. The easiest way to zoom into the green is to just tap on the flag stick. If you tap on the flag stick, it'll zoom in, let you pan around. In fact, if you want to move the flag stick for the day's location, you just kind of long press it with your finger. You'll notice the map kind of shifts up like that, right? The map shifts up, and as soon as it shifts up, I can actually drag that flag anywhere to the day's location. Now that's not required. You don't have to move the flag, but that's available to you if you want kind of the most accurate results from your round of golf. So that's how to quickly zoom into the green. I'll zoom back out to the hole. Another shortcut that may not be obvious, but that is very useful, is if you're using it on the phone and you want to change holes and you want to do so without doing the score entry, you'll notice if I hit the next button, it's going to ask me for score. If I want to bypass this, because say I'm starting a scramble and I'm starting on hole 10 or a shotgun, I don't want to go through this for each hole when I don't know what I've scored yet, and I don't want to have to hit skip 100 times. The easiest way to advance to the next hole or go backwards and bypass that is to actually just swipe from the edge of the screen. You just swipe from the edge of the screen, you'll notice I'm going through the holes and the score entry does not come up, right? So I can very quickly go from hole 1 to hole 7 or whatever I need. The other option is, of course, to go backwards. If you go backwards, you won't be bothered for the score. So that's another shortcut that many of our users may or may not know about, but kind of some sneaky features that'll help you navigate the app quicker than normal. Other things that we wanted to show when you are using the Apple Watch and you're using our swing detection, you'll notice that anytime a swing is detected, it immediately takes you to the score entry feature. And I guess to demonstrate that, I'll go into our watch options and show you what that looks like. But when it detects a swing, by default, it's going to ask you for a club. And you'll notice the next time you look at your watch that you're seeing it ask you for a club. If you like putting in your clubs as you play, no problem. You can absolutely do that and just put in your clubs as you play. If this bothers you and you don't want to input your clubs as you play, you don't want to be bothered by this, you want it to stay on the yardage screen, then what you'll do is turn track clubs off in preferences. So that's another little trick where you can turn off track clubs and you won't be bothered with the club selection screen while you play with the watch. The second thing that I was showing, just the watch options that people may or may not know about, is when you open, I guess I should start, this button at the bottom brings up all of our menu options while you're playing. So anytime you want to change preferences or you want to see what options are available to you, or maybe you want to exit the round early and save your progress. Maybe you only played 9 holes on an 18-hole course and you want to exit early. You'll do that all through this menu button at the bottom. So it's no problem. If you only play 9 holes on an 18-hole course, you can exit, you can save, you can sign the scorecard, whatever you need to do. And our analytics and everything on the back end will only count the holes that you played. So if you only play 4 holes, that's fine. We'll use the stats for the 4 holes you played. We'll intelligently ignore the other 14. So it's as simple as that to play shorter rounds if you don't have time to play a full 18. In this case, if you do want to change watch options and look at what's available to you, you'll click on that and you'll notice you have an option to either track scores with this plus button or track individual shots. Now, if you have swing detection, I would say leave it on scores because there's no need to track individual shots, but some of our users do like to track individual shots, and I'll show you what that looks like. Turning off swing detection or low power mode, if you have an older watch or if you forget to charge your watch one day and the battery's getting low and you get that warning, you can go switch to low power mode and it'll help your watch get through the rest of the round. It'll still give you GPS yardages. It'll disable the swing detection functionality to save battery life for you. If you are left-handed, you should make sure to change to left-handed mode. We'll do a better job of swing detection if you have it set correctly there. And then the last watch option is to disable that swing vibration. If after your practice swing or after your full swing, you don't like that little vibration that tells you we're working, you can disable that so it won't be there. So real quickly to show you what the watch shots, tracking shots does when you're on your button, let me get to where the GPS is. This little plus button, I have it set to shots. If I click it, what you're going to notice is it's going to ask me for a club. And if I select a club, it's going to add a shot to my location, right? So this is where I would like manually add shots with the watch. The other option on the watch is to, instead of tracking shots with the watch, you track scores. And so it just changes what this button does to where in this case, if I click it, you'll notice now instead of asking me for a club, it's asking me what I shot on the hole, and I can go put that information in, how many putts I had and whatnot, and it'll go mark the hole accordingly. So those are the 2 ways you can use the watch to manually input data. Again, you can also change holes and navigate on the watch as well, and it'll help you get from hole to hole as well. Real quickly before we move on to stats, I think I wanted to show a little bit about the auto shot tracking and explain that for maybe some of our new users who haven't seen it before. What you'll see, as in this case, it's a simulated round, but this user's traversing the course and swing detection is not on, but it's marking locations where we believe shots happen. So these are locations where, using GPS and using how long you're at locations, using accelerometers, we're detecting where we believe you might have hit shots. Now, in this case, let's say this user was in a golf cart and they were sharing it with their partner, we may have detected too many shots. So if we do detect too many shots and you want to dismiss some of those to improve our AI, that's very simple. You can just click on any of these and it's going to ask you if you hit a shot from there. And you would say, nope, that was a shot where I was maybe waiting on my partner, or maybe in this case, I was helping my partner find his ball in the trees, and I can go dismiss those 2. If you find that the app is detecting way too many shots, and again, you're not using an Apple Watch, you can also fine tune that again in settings under preferences. Under auto shot detection, you can change what type of player you are. So if I click on this, I have options from very fast to deliberate. Very fast player, it'll detect more shots, right? Because it's assuming that you're going to spend less time over a ball, so it's going to actually detect more shot locations. If you see that it's detecting way too many, you can start to change yourself more towards a deliberate player where it'll make it take longer and make it a little harder for us to detect shots, so you'll get less shots detected. But you have options here. If it's not working well for you, you can kind of play with this to fine tune it to your round. But so in the best case scenario, my auto shot detection has been working. My breadcrumbs have been tracking where I go. score entry and shot tracking is as simple as going to the next hole and putting in what I scored. So in this case, if I say I scored a 4, let's say I one putted from 6 feet, then I put in my score for that hole, and now I'm on to hole 2. If I go back, what you'll see happened is the app used those locations to make best guesses at where I hit those shots. And in fact, it's kind of tracked it for me. So now it knows I hit my tee shot 219 yards to the fairway and then chipped up by the green. If it does make a mistake, let's say it thought this was a shot that I hit, but I actually hit the shot from here. Again, to reiterate, editing shots is very, very simple. I can actually just long press this one and drag it to where it goes. Or in that case, oops, I accidentally grabbed the pen. So let's zoom in real quick because that'll make it easy. So that shortcut again, let's drag the pen where it needs to go. And what I want to do in this case is move this shot where it detected me in the golf cart to the very front of the green. And as simple as that, now I've tracked my shots and I have this hole just like I want it. If I want to track clubs, I can tap on any of these and add the club information. So I could say I teed off with a 3 wood and I hit, say, a 9 iron into the green. And now I've tracked my clubs. One of the questions we get quite often is what about around the green? Do I want to track what club I used here? Do I not want to track what club is here? It's really up to you. But when you look at our club information, if you don't want a short chip to count against, let's say you used a lob wedge, then I would suggest not marking this as a lob wedge, because then that 20 yards won't be applied to the lob wedge in that case. You can leave it marked as a chip, which is the default, right? Or if I wanted to remove the club information here, I could go change it to a chip and it'll remove that for me. If you need to do any further advanced edits, change lie, do various things, we also have this edit menu that will allow you to do that as well. I guess, Ryan, while I'm there, do we have any questions so far?
Yeah.
Or any?
So I got a couple that I'll fire off. First off, from Clayton, he posted a message or a question in the chat. So Clayton asked, question on putting auto shot detection. Are the 6 to 10 feet putting stats / strokes gained based on the first putts only, or is the app smart enough to know when I did a bad lag putt or I'm hitting again from 6+ feet away, not the 2 feet default?
Yeah, so good question. So let me put in some dummy data here, and I'll show you kind of how that works with the auto shot algorithm, and how if you need to make finer tuning, you can do that. So I'll maybe try to accomplish 2 things here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to advance to the next hole, and I'm going to say I made a 6 with a 3 putt from, call it 41 feet. Okay. So that's how I've marked my hole. If I go back to my auto shot, you're going to see that there are 6 shots added. So 3 that aren't on the green, because I said it 3 putted. I 3 putted. And then I've got the 3 putt from 41 feet. So let's answer Clayton's question first, and then I'll come back and say, what if you had a penalty or did something different? If I want to know what the app did for these 3 putts from 41 feet, the easiest way is to go click on this pencil, and it's going to show me the shot by shot information. And what you'll see is by default, I got the 41-foot putt for my starting putt. It added an 8-foot putt and a 2-foot putt. So why did it add an 8-foot putt? The way the app works is it's always going to make your last putt for auto putt a 2-footer, right? But then if you 3 putt, like in this instance, it makes your second putt roughly 20% of the distance of the first putt. That's what it assumes. Now, so for a long putt, like a 41-foot putt, in this case, it's going to assume it's an 8-footer. Now, if you did something different and you want to fine tune that, you can. So let's say in this case, you actually knocked it to 2 feet and you missed a really short one. It's very simple to change it in those instances. You can go change this 8-footer to a 2-footer, and now you're done and you have them exactly right. So what I find for my own game is that the auto putt entry is very, very good. And it's usually only about 1 hole around where I do 3 putt, where I got to go change a lag putt that wasn't quite accurate. But otherwise, it pretty much gets it close for what I'm doing. And I hardly ever have to edit this at all. But if you do want to make specific edits, let's say you hit a really poor lag putt and you only got it halfway there, it's simple. You can just go in here and adjust that second putt to whatever it needs to be. Or let's say I then hit that 20-footer to 6-foot and made the 6-footer. I can come in here and dial it in, and it'll be as accurate as you want to spend the time to make it. right? So we take a good first pass that's going to fit probably most situations, but if you need to make it even better, you can dive in here and adjust it as you need to get it exactly right. So that when you do go to that putting section in the analysis, it's exactly right. It follows what you did to the letter.
So there was another question I was thinking of while we were going through this. So there was a point where we talked about turning the tracking clubs off on the watch, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, does that, someone may ask the question, does that limit the ability to still track clubs? So for example, yeah, I can't track it on the watch, but can I still enter it post round or during the round via the phone?
100%. So it doesn't change the functionality of tapping on any of these shots, right? So I've turned track clubs off on the watch, or I've turned track clubs off, so it's not going to show up on the watch and bug me there. But it doesn't prevent me from going in here and saying, yep, I hit a driver here, or I hit a 9-iron here. It doesn't take that functionality away in any case. It just stops bugging you on the watch, which is kind of the intent. So
Right.
to finish tracking this hole, let's say one of the other questions we get is, well, how do you track penalties, right? So in this case, I didn't tell it I made a penalty. I told it I made a 6 with a 3-putt. But let's say one of those shots was a penalty where I hit my tee shot in the lake, just as an example. Well, since you're not likely to follow your ball into the lake, of course, our auto shot tracking can't detect that you went in there. So we're going to add shots to the best of our ability. But for penalties in particular, and this is true of any shot tracking app, whether you use some of our competitors or whatnot, penalties we can't do quite automatically. So you will have to do editing in those cases. But it's very simple in V1 game. So in this case, let's say I hit my tee shot into the lake and then I dropped back here and hit onto the green. Well, that means that this third shot never happened. I was never here in the trees, right? Actually, what I'm missing is a penalty shot here in the middle. So if I want to correct this hole to make it reflect what I actually did, I'll take the shot that's incorrect. So this shot over here in the trees, and I'm going to drag it into the lake where I actually hit it. And now I have a penalty shot, right? It's automatically changed it to a penalty. The one thing you might notice is I said I hit my tee shot in the water, not my third shot in the water. So if I need to reorder these and fix that, again, I can go to that edit button, and it's very simple to go just change the order. I'd grab these 3 lines and just drag them to switch it around. And now you'll notice when I go back, it switches them. Now, driver went in the water. I took my drop. I went back on the line with the pin and hit a 9-iron on the green. Any other questions we want to hop on there while we're on the shot tracking or the navigating piece?
So there's one, I think there's one question, maybe more so kind of an understanding of the app is, I think there's a common question that we get is about tee boxes, right? I think we get questions from users that say, well, how do I change the tee box? And I think that, there's various other apps that are dependent on that. Can you go into why we don't ever ask you for a tee box?
Yeah, so the concept of a tee box is, I guess, important if you were locked to a specific tee box. In the case of V1 game, we're tracking where you actually hit shots. So which set of tee boxes, whether you're playing red, blue, or white, or whatever your tee boxes are called to the golf course you play, actually doesn't matter, because some people, you might even jump between one set of tee boxes and the other and play a combination or whatnot. So what V1 game is doing, it's actually just tracking the locations of where you hit tee shots. So it doesn't really matter what tee box it actually was. So another way maybe to say that is, by default, we're not going to add your shot to the tee box, but you're going to tell us where you hit that first shot, which is typically going to be from a tee box. Now, moving forward, look, we're talking about things like GIN integration, and maybe that'll change in the future. But for now, we don't ask you for a tee box because we don't need that information. You're going to tell us where you hit shots, or in this case, auto shot detection is detecting what tee box you were near, what tee box you were going to hit off of. So a lot of times when we get that question, it's because somebody's maybe tracking shots from home after the round, or they didn't do auto shot tracking. And what they'll notice is, by default, the app's going to add a shot to the furthest tee box. So let me show you an example of that. If I'm sitting here on this par 3 and I go tell it I made a 4 with a 2-putt from 18 feet, what you're going to see is it adds the 4 shots and it adds it to the furthest back tee box. And what some of our users say is, well, wait a minute, I didn't play that tee box. So why didn't you know what tee box I played? It's real simple to go move that, right? Again, long press, drag, put it on the tee box you played from, and that's how you'd mark your tee box. similar in this case, I guess, along the same lines of that question, and I'm going to delete all the shots here to do it again. So I can delete all the shots there very quickly. But another question that we get is with our swing detection or automatic shot detection, right? What happens if, let's say I'm using the Apple Watch. Sorry, I'm jumping around. I'm using the Apple Watch and there's a shot around the green that's not detected by the swing detection because it's a smaller swing and the watch doesn't detect it. How do I get that shot in? How do I add it? Because my watch isn't going to vibrate. I'm not going to get the chance to pick a club. How do I add that shot? That shot's going to get added when you add your score. So let's say the swing detection has worked and I've marked, I'm going to go ahead and mark these couple of guys to kind of simulate that. So let's say my watch went off on these guys and it marked those two. Dismiss that one. But my watch isn't going to vibrate for these shots around the green. Now, if you have your phone in your pocket, the phone is still going to detect that you spent a lot of time here and guess that that's a chip shot. But what's going to happen is when I put in my score, it's going to go try to fill in the details. So let me say that I made a 5 with a 2-putt from, I'll just leave it at 16 feet. You'll notice that the swing detection only got 2 shots for me. So it adds a 3rd shot. In this case, okay, maybe it did a poor job and this wasn't on a tee box. So it actually added a shot back here. But in this case, it's adding the number of shots you said it had. So it expected you to have 5 shots. It added a 5th shot. And now if that 5th shot is in the incorrect place, again, you just long press and drag it to where it should have been. In this case, since I didn't mark a tee box, that wasn't a good example, but it's real simple again to just reorder them and take that shot that was the 1st and actually drag it to the 3rd location, and it sorts itself out. Right now it looks like a golf hole. So anytime you put in your score, it's going to go automatically add enough shots to add up to that score. And if there wasn't a shot detected, you might have to move one. You might have to move one quickly to get it exactly right. But that's how you'll put in small chip shots if they aren't automatically detected. You can also always use our old system to add a shot manually, and I'll maybe skip that for tonight unless somebody has a specific question. But there are other ways to add shots as well if you need. But I suggest using the score entry.
Cool. Yeah, we got one more question about plotting driver distances and other clubs, but I think we'll cover that a little bit later in some of the analytics and showing by clubs and stuff like that. So I just want to keep that in mind for John, but I think we'll be covering that a little bit later. So
okay, so with that, should we jump into the analytics piece now and what you get out of the shot tracking when you're done?
Yeah, I think we move on to the next section.
Okay, so let's say you've tracked all these shots, you're done playing with the rounds. What are you going to get out of all that? Hopefully not much work that you put in, but the little bit of editing or actually using the app on the golf course. What are you going to get out of it? And that's really where the post-round summary kind of kicks in. So I'm going to exit here, and maybe I'll even save this round. And you'll notice that immediately I'm getting feedback on what I did that day. So in this case, again, I haven't played all 18 holes, but for the couple of holes I did play, I was 2 over, took me 15 strokes. It's going to start comparing my performance to a scratch handicap. And this round summary may be interesting. I'm going to actually leave this one and go to a more complete round to show you what that would look like. And the round I'm going to go to is actually my son's account. And the reason why I'm going to go to my son's account is because, like many of our new users, he doesn't have a lot of data here. He's only played a round or 2, so he doesn't have a lot of data accumulated. But what we want to show is the value of the data you're going to get immediately the first time you play that round of golf. So I'm going to open the round summary from this round here. And so this is what comes up immediately after you play. And maybe I'll step out real quick and change it to a 20 handicap because that's what he would be compared to. And this handicap level is set when you registered. When you told the app that you shoot 85, it's going to go set a handicap level that's in that general area. But you can always come in here and change your reference for what you'll be compared to when you're done playing. And you'll notice now when I go back to my son's round and go to the summary, now he's getting compared to a 20 handicap, okay? But so this was actually the first tournament my son ever played in, and I kept the app with me in my pocket and tracked the shots as he played so that we could get some feedback on how my young son is playing. And again, this is the same type of data you're going to get the first time you play a round of golf in V1 game. So He shot a 53 for 9 holes. And if I look at it, comparing him to a 20 handicap, I've got his strokes gained. So strokes gained is broken into driving, approach, which is really kind of your iron game, shots longer than 75 yards, your short game, which is shots that are less than 75 yards that are not on the green, and then putting, right? Basically any shot that's on the green. So when I compare what my son did to a 20 handicap, it's going to jump out at me that maybe he struggled with short game and he struggled with putting. So that's what you're going to get at the very top with the strokes gained. But you also get maybe statistics that you're more familiar with here at the bottom. So I got his long drive for the day, his average drive for the day, if he made any driving errors. So errors are anytime you hit a drive into a penalty or into a recovery situation, that's going to be considered an error because it's going to cost you strokes. How many feet of putts he made, how many putts he took, greens, fairways, all that information is here kind of from a basic standpoint. And at the bottom, we have what we call our 3 keys. So these are things that you want to avoid if you want to score well, being penalties, 2 chips, so taking more than 1 shot to get on the green from inside 75 yards, and then 3 putts. And if you minimize these 3 keys, it's going to tell you what your potential is. So in this case, my son shot a 53. It's telling me his potential was a 39 if he just would have eliminated 2 chips and 3 putts, right? He had 7 of each. So that's already good feedback that, hey, if we can find a way to limit these big mistakes, we could really be knocking a lot of strokes off of his round. But where V1 Game and the post-round summary gets even better is it's going to dive into each of these areas and show you what you did well and didn't do well. And this is included for the first, I think, 2 rounds. And then after that, you do need a Birdie subscription to get the fully unlocked version of this stats. But I think you'll see that the value here is immense, right? So as I go try to dive into short game and putting and what I did on this day, I can just kind of swipe through and scroll through the different pieces of this. So it's going to say he had a great driving day because he didn't have any driving errors. He did tend to favor the left a little bit. And this system where it's saying it's a great driving day, it will learn and it will know more about Parker the more he plays. So right now, only has 2 rounds worth of data on him, but it's already kind of analyzing his performance relative to himself. He was excellent around the green. He did have 7 2 chips. His average proximity was 39 feet. Putting, he missed 5 putts inside 6 feet and had 7 3 putts. So again, as it learns, it'll know if this really is a great day or a bad day for him. For him being, 6 years old, it really wasn't a bad putting day by any stretch of the imagination, but he is 3 putting. And so we can take this piece of information and say, okay, well, what are we going to go practice at a high level? The last thing is it's going to tell you what types of shots he hit. So if I'm going to go take him to the driving range or the practice course, these are the types of shots he's actually hitting on the golf course. So I'll know that this is probably where I want to go focus his practice. But if I go back to that, to the very first page of this, and what are my takeaways? Compared to 20 handicap, we lost a lot of strokes on short game and putting. And since you're going to get this feedback every time you play, you'll notice if things are consistently popping up. If every time I play putting is popping up, then I know that's where I need to spend my practice. That's where I need to work on to get better. And again, I can go look at the putting screen if I want to say, okay, is it lag putting from further away, or am I missing the short ones? And at a quick glance, I can kind of get that information and know what part of putting I need to work on. But so what we did after, again, this first tournament that he played in, this first little piece of feedback is we took this and said, okay, we know what we need to practice. We're struggling around the green because inside 75 yards, we weren't hitting the green. So we need to work on that. And we need to work on putting so that we can knock down some of these 3 putts and get close to our potential. So his next tournament was a week later. And we spent several days, on the range, hitting balls, working on contact, finding that low point, and then also working on putting, just getting a feel for the pace, getting a feel for the greens. And what we'll see, I exit this, I'll go back and pull up his second round from just a week later. And just a week later, he shot a 43. So in a week, of that focused practice and using some of that feedback that he got from his first round in V1 Game, he was able to knock off 10 strokes in just a week, right? Again, we use that feedback directly from the app to help that. And if you look at his performance now, I know I don't have the other one side by side, but he had a much better day with his iron. So his contact was better overall. And his short game and putting, he gained significant strokes on his previous performance. Now, he's still losing strokes relative to a 20 handicap, but the improvement is pretty significant. And obviously that translated to score for him as well. And if we look at the bottom piece of this plot, what you'll notice is before in the 3 keys, right, he had 7s in both of these spots with his potential being 39. So where this was encouraging, particularly for a young golfer in this case, is one, he was able to make progress on his score. Two, he was able to make progress on the 3 keys. And now he sees with that practice that his potential got even lower, right? Now he's looking at potentially having been able to shoot a 35 if he can continue to chip away at some of these bigger mistakes. Where he also got excited again as a young golfer, 6 years old, long drive, 116 yards. So seeing that big improvement from the week before and averaging 101 yards, he was excited about that too. I think the week before he'd only hit 2 greens, so he moved it to 5 greens in just a week and was excited about that. But the nice thing about that post-round summary is it's capturing all that information and giving it to you in little nuggets so that you can quickly see what to go work on. And if I want to dive deep into any of these individual areas, again, I can just swipe and see, okay, excellent approach day. This was an excellent approach day. You'll notice, I think when I showed you on the previous round, he missed almost everything short of the green. And in just a week, he was able to do a better job of getting contact and getting things to the green. Great putting day. His misses inside 6 feet went from 5, I believe, to 2. So he still had some 3 putts, but you'll notice that those 3 putts that were kind of all in this lower range moved to the upper range. So his putting, his lag putting improved dramatically in a week. He put in the work and practiced, but that practice was based on feedback that he got from V1 game after just a single round tracking his game. And then a great driving day. Again, no driving errors and hitting the fairway for the most part. So that's kind of a quick way to get some valuable insights out of that post-round summary the very first time you play, the very first time you use V1 game. And now myself, I've logged, I think, almost 170 rounds now with the system, and still I always take the time to look at that post-round summary when I'm done playing and try to digest what it's telling me I did versus what I think I did, right? We get some key pieces of information like what types of shots you hit that day, what yardages you had into the greens and whatnot. And even now, I find myself, I'll be walking off of the golf course, maybe storming mad because I missed a 3-footer on the last hole, and I'll be cursing my putting. And sometimes I'll look at the post-round summary and see that really it was my approach game that wasn't very good. I'm mad at my putting because I remember one shot, but my irons were never hitting it close enough for me to have good looks. And so it kind of recalibrates what I thought I was doing well or poorly to what I actually was, so that now I make sure that my practice is spent in the right areas, making the right decisions.
Yeah, I was thinking about something is, especially as a new user coming into V1 game, I think this is something that, like you said, you find yourself looking at this post round, as do I. I like that immediate feedback and looking at how my game's going. And oftentimes what I'll find is, yeah, it's as I expected. I struggle personally with approach shots. That's just the weakest part of my game. I save myself with short game and putting. But I'm terrible with the irons. I just always have been. I suck. But I think one of the challenges. So I think the good thing about it as a new user coming in is you don't have a ton of data. Like you got 100-something rounds. I know I've got a number of rounds. I can't remember how many, but you've got a lot of data that you can really dive into some deep analytics and really fine tune and look at very specific parts of your game. But as a new user, what do you do, right? You're trying to start to log rounds, and that takes time to build that data to then really start to understand different parts of your game. And I think the advantage here, and the thing I like about it, is you really get some instantaneous feedback. But then I think the one thing that can pop up, and I wanted to ask you your thoughts on, is like, so you get this data. How do you might see something that seems eye-popping, but I think there's got to be a sense in your game where you kind of check yourself and go, is that a normal thing, or was this a really bad day for putting, but I'm actually not a bad putter? And how do you not react? Sometimes I don't think you want to necessarily react to, maybe you see a really big negative on the putting day, but maybe it was just greens you're not used to or something like that. Do you have that experience yourself where you got to kind of check what you see sometimes because it's not really normal to your game? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I guess one thing I'd say is, for one, the stats don't lie. So if it says you did a poor job putting, then you did a poor job putting. Now, I think what you're getting at is you still don't want to overreact, right? If I had that bad day because maybe the greens were aerated, right, and that factored into that putting day, then you still don't want to read into issues like that. But what you're looking for, particularly as you use the app for a longer amount of time, is trends, things that are consistently popping up. So if every time I finish a round, it's telling me that I had a poor approach day, then it's probably time to put in some work with the irons and try to get them better and figure out why I'm making mistakes. Is it poor club selection, or am I always missing short, that type of thing? And that's where you can dive into kind of this approach piece, right? Am I always missing short? Am I always missing left? And we'll kind of get into that in the analytics piece or analyze piece as well. But everybody has one-off bad days where maybe you had the hooks and you were hooking it all day. You don't want to read too much into those particular instances, but you are looking for things that consistently pop up. And the nice thing with the post-round summary is you get that instantaneous feedback, whether it's your first time using V1 game or your 100th time using it. It's going to give you some useful information on how that day went.
We just had a question come in from Mark, and maybe getting into some more of the deeper analytics and whatnot, maybe a good spot. But his question is, can you download raw data? For instance, I like distances of every 6-iron I hit to determine what distance I hit at least 75% of my shots.
Yeah,
I think that might be a good segue into getting a little bit deeper into some of the stats.
Yeah, so we can show the capability now. As far as raw data, I don't know that you would want our raw data where it's every single shot by shot and information that might bore you, but what we try to do is a good job of summarizing that information in a way that you can use it. And if you find that we're missing something or there's a piece of information that you want, we can likely get it and calculate it. But most of that information is going to be in the analyze section. So if I answer your club distance question first before I jump into maybe where I want to go next, if you go into analyze, you'll have your account that you can click on and see your data as you accumulate more and more rounds. You can add friends. You can look at the demo if you want to see my golf game in my account or Ryan's in this case. You can click on it here, but you can add friends and have competitions as well. So in this case, I'll click on my account to go through it. And to answer that club data, we do have one section where when you put in all those clubs, this is where your club data goes. And if I pull it up, it's going to show you, for instance, distances. So I think he asked the question on, will it tell me where I hit 75% of my 6-irons? Not quite 75%, but you do get a box plot if you're familiar with box plots. But effectively what this information is telling me on my 6-iron is that on a median, I hit it 180 yards. So I can count on almost every 6-iron being about a 180-yard club. Now, I've hit it as far as 230 yards and as short as 148 yards. Of course, that's going to depend on things like wind and elevation, particularly being in Texas where it can be really, really windy. But you do have kind of a distribution of where you hit 6-irons. So maybe not exactly the question you asked in terms of where the 70 or 75, but kind of a box plot's going to show you the 75th percentile, right? So you can kind of get outside of this and see where your where that distribution is and how high or how low that 6-iron might go. So we do have that information not only for distances by club, if you track your clubs, but proximity as well. So I can tell you on average, how close do you hit your 6-iron when you use it. And this is in feet. So 88 feet. And accuracy, I can tell you how likely you are to hit the green with a 6-iron. So this, I have it filtered, I think, to my last 20 rounds. So I've used my 6-iron 23 times in my last 20 rounds, and I'll hit the green 39% of the time when I pull a 6-iron. And then you have driving stats as well and scoring stats with each club. So we do have that level of detail in the analysis section to dive as deep as you want to go. And if you find you're looking for something we don't have, we can calculate just about anything you can imagine with those stats. So where I wanted to transition from there maybe is this is my account, but you can dive into the data, like I said, as deep as you want to go. But for a lot of our users, if you're not used to looking at data or you want something simpler, that's where we offer the virtual coach. And that comes with the Eagle subscription. But virtual coach does a lot of the analysis for you and really tries to help streamline you to better golf. So if I click on it for myself, what you're going to see is analyzing. By default, this is looking at my last 5 rounds. Now I can go change those settings to look at more or look at less. But in this case, it's telling me for my last 5 rounds, I've shot averaged a 75.4. I could be shooting as well as a 71.3 if I eliminated mistakes. And when we start talking about mistakes, again, it's those 3 keys. It's 3 putts, it's 2 chips, it's penalties. So in this case, it's going to show me how many of those I make per round. So between 3 putts and penalties, that's almost 3 shots a round that I'm throwing away. And if I could just, maybe focus a little bit more on my lag putting, and then penalties is probably going to be a little bit more course management, Or maybe penalties could not be course management. It could be ball striking. Maybe you hit something fat, chunked it into a lake, or hit something thin over the green into a house or something like that. But keeping an eye on that, almost 3 strokes around, I'm throwing away for those big mistakes. So when you're at a handicap, whether you're at a handicap of a 2 or a handicap of a 30, right? These are going to be keys that impact your score. As I scroll down through the guidance that Virtual Coach gives me, what you're going to see is it's going to tell me kind of what to work on first or work on next. So for me, I think this is one of the things that Ryan kind of mentioned earlier. It's putting. Putting is a challenge for myself where I'm throwing away the most strokes putting. And in this case, I think I'm still comparing myself to a 20 handicap. So one of the things you'll notice as well is if I change what I'm comparing myself to, the data adjusts as well. So now if I compare myself to a scratch golfer, I'm throwing away more strokes with the irons and some putting as well. But what's nice, you set that reference to whatever goal you're trying to accomplish. If you're shooting, mid 80s and you're trying to be that 10 handicap, set your reference to a 10 handicap. If you want to set it to a 5 handicap, you can do that as well and say, that's my goal. And it's going to measure your gap to that level so that you can start to achieve that goal. In my case, I'm trying to get to a scratch. And so what Virtual Coach is going to tell me is I need to work on my approach game, my irons, and I need to work on my putting are the 2 biggest areas that I could work on. So rather than myself trying to go look at data and understand where I need to go and kind of dive in and get my hands dirty, this gives me a very quick and easy way to analyze my game, tells me exactly where to go so I don't even have to think about it. And if I do want to get some details on, okay, you're telling me I need to work on irons. What do? Do I just start beating every iron and just go to the range and start hammering them until I get better? Well, no, we're going to give you even more information than that. So if you click on the approach piece, it's going to take you to our approach histogram. And again, if you have an Eagle subscription, it's going to give you these insights where it's going to start telling you where to practice and where to spend your time. So if you're not familiar with a histogram, what a histogram is doing at the top is showing me how many times or how many attempts I have from each yardage. So the bigger the bar is, the more times I've had that shot in my last 20 rounds. So I have shots from inside 30 yards, probably the most, but this darker line is showing me my strokes gained, right? Whether I'm performing poorly towards the bottom or well towards the top in that area. So even though I have a lot of shots from less than 30 yards, my strokes gained is very good. So again, Virtual Coach cuts through all of that. I don't have to understand this plot at all because it's telling me exactly what I need to know right here. It's telling me I've lost the most strokes from 200 plus yards. And that in a way makes sense because if you have 4 par 5s in every round, then more than likely, unless I'm pounding the ball, I'm going to have at least 4 shots that are over 200 yards that I got to hit into the green. And if I look at those shots, I have them often and I'm losing strokes with them, hitting them into recovery situations, hitting them into the rough, not hitting them in great spots. So that's probably where I should spend some time practicing is those shots over 200 yards. If I want to go to my next insight, it's going to move to 126 to 150 yards. So this is my next most difficult spot where I'm throwing strokes away. But so now, again, that focused practice, if I'm going to go carve out some time on the driving range, I'm not just going to go beat balls and hit a million 6-irons because that's actually not going to do me a lot of good. I'm pretty good with my 6-iron, pretty good from that distance anyway. I really need to focus on longer shots and shots from that 126 to 150 yards. If I go practice those 2 areas, 1, I have those shots more often, and 2, I'm losing more strokes from those distances. I can really improve my game and improve my irons game. So it's really pinpointing in a very specific way where I need to go practice and where I should spend time hitting balls. And if I want to take that even a step further, so I'm hitting it from 126 to 150 yards, cool, I'm going to go practice that shot. But when I miss, where am I missing? What I'll show you here in a second when I dismiss these insights is I can actually click on this strokes gain piece and I can say review, show me what I'm doing. Basically, I'm saying, show me what I'm doing from 126 to 150 yards. And it takes me to the shot distributions. So now I can see from this distance, I tend to miss left and I tend to miss short. So now I can be even more intelligent, right? Am I under clubbing? Maybe maybe it's an equipment issue and my lie angle's not quite right. And so I'm catching the heel heavy and missing left and short. But you start to get, you can dive as deep as you want to go, but it's really giving you the tools you need to focus that practice and work on the right thing rather than just beating balls on a driving range. So that's kind of where I would like to go from an approach perspective, right? That's where I would dive in. But then next, it's telling me I need to go work on putting. So again, if I want to dive onto that and say, okay, well, where should I be focused on putting? Should I be working on short ones around the hole? Should I be working on lag putting? Where am I really making mistakes? And you get a few key nuggets here that I'm three putting 1.5 times per round, and I'm missing 1.3 short ones, so less than 6 feet per round. And if I, again, click on that, it's going to take me to a plot. And again, the Eagle subscription is going to give me some insights on where to focus my practice. So it's going to tell me my worst strokes gain performance is from 6 to 10 feet. So if I was going to go practice putting, that's where I should practice. I'm not making enough 6 to 10 footers. Next, it's going to say is 10 to 15 feet. And then it's going to tell me where I three putt the most. But if you look at this kind of overall, just glancing at it, and this blue line is strokes gained, each of these bars is a different distance from the hole, going from less than 3 feet all the way up to 50 feet or more. And all of these plots are interactive, I should say. So you can tap around, get the information you need, see what each of these things are. But at a glance, what it's telling me, if I look at the strokes gain plot, is I'm losing strokes on every distance under 30 feet. So that's really where I need to spend my time practicing. Now, I guess maybe one of the questions would be, okay, well, how are you going to spend that time practicing? How are you going to improve this? And one thing I know with my game is I don't tend to play the same course every day, right? I play a different course almost every time I go out. I bounce around a little bit and play, which means my familiarity with the greens is usually relatively low. I don't know the breaks. I don't know the greens very well because I haven't played those courses before. So what I use this information for is now when I'm going and doing my warm up and I'm sitting there at the, getting ready to play, I actually spend more of my time on the putting green than I do on the driving range because I need to get used to the speed. I need to see how the greens are breaking. I need to be able to adjust to grain or whatever. And so I actually change the way I warm up for the round based on this data so that I can go try to improve my putting performance when I'm playing around I'm not familiar with. When I know that my driving and my short game, for instance, are going to be much more consistent parts of my game and are going to travel a little bit better from course to course. So that's Virtual Coach. Now, not everybody's going to have Virtual Coach. Again, it requires an Eagle subscription to kind of get in here and get this streamlined portions of the data. We do have other things like trends, improving, whether things that are improving, things that are declining. So I could click on this and it'll tell me what parts of my game are getting better. I could click on this and it'll tell me what parts of my game are getting worse. And of course, I could dive in. We have other tools like Course Explorer and Course Records all in the Virtual Coach. Not all of our subscribers want to pay for Virtual Coach or see all of the value there. So with a Birdie subscription, you get access to the Analyze menu, which is this piece here. And it does have similar pieces of data, but the difference is this isn't going to shortcut you to where you want to go. So if I go change this reference back to scratch, get it to recalculate, it's not going to give me the, hey, go work on this, go work on that. It's going to give me information and I can dive in as deep as I want to go, but it's kind of up to you to go figure out what it is that you want to work on. So maybe I'll click on approach and it's going to take me to other pieces of data that I can use to maybe get to the same place. But Virtual Coach really does a lot of the heavy lifting for you in terms of telling you what you need to work on and where you can improve. Maybe one other thing that I'll highlight that I focus on and make sure that we have some time to answer some questions is another way that you can use the V1 game in particular is to monitor progress. So when you do say, hey, I'm going to work on something, maybe you want to be the next Bryson DeChambeau and work on driving distance. Maybe you want to work on putting. What this allows you to do is use data to actually track your progress and track how you're improving for those various things. So myself, Bryson DeChambeau's inspired me a little bit. I've been doing the super swing or super speed training, trying to get faster. And so I can go look at my driving distance and kind of see how that's trending. And again, this is my real golf data, right? So I'm not necessarily hiding anything. And maybe my average drive hasn't ticked up tremendously. It's ticking up a little bit here at the end. One thing to note is the average drive is all of the tee shots you've hit on par fours and par fives. So if you do have holes where you're laying up, that's still going to be counted in your average. But your long drive is your longest drive of the day. And I do feel like, in the last handful of weeks, last month, putting in some work using the super speed sticks, I have seen my long drive at least tick up. That's also wintertime in Texas and the fairways are fast. So trust me, 348 or whatever that is not the norm. but it is a way for me to track progress and track that work I'm putting in, whether it be in the gym or swinging fast or just practicing on the range, is translating to something in my golf game. And I like to use V1 Game for that as well.
Hey, so Dallas,
Yep.
speaking of Texas and weather conditions, Daryl's got a question. I'm not sure if he's from Texas or not, but perhaps he's familiar. Distances are often a factor of wind, especially in Texas. Any way to track wind or weather?
Yeah, absolutely. So with our latest subscription offerings, and let me see if I can start that round real quick to show you.
He's in Austin. So there you go.
There you go. Yeah. So what we recently added with Virtual Caddy, and with any subscription, you get the wind functionality. With our upper tier subscription, like an Eagle, you'll also get elevation. But we've added this weather recently to the app, so you do get wind, where it's going to tell you what direction the wind is going. Now, this is hidden if you're playing in a tournament, right? We are USGA compliant. So if you're playing a tournament, this is gone. If you're playing anything other than tournament, we will show you wind. Right? But so this is just showing you wind direction. It's not showing you how it impacts your particular distance. Now let me go find where I am on the golf course, because I think the simulation is still running. So somewhere there's a little blue dot. There we are. So we're about to be on hole 7. But so what we've added recently, and you'll notice the wind direction changes with the hole, right? To tell me that now the wind is with me. But one thing you'll notice, we've got this inside button, which enables our virtual caddy. And if I click on it, it's going to tell me what the plays like distance is based on the wind and based on other factors, what the hole is playing like, and give you an idea for club. So if I wait for this to get into the fairway, which may take a little while, it's also taking elevation into account. And if you've played the golf course before, that virtual caddy will also show you previous tee shots you've hit on a hole and what you scored. It'll show you shot length type data. Again, it does give you that wind information, and it'll tell you how the wind is affecting your shot. In this case, I guess tonight there's not much wind in the Dallas area, so it's not going to affect that distance a whole lot. But it does take wind and elevation into account. When you click on that insights button with our virtual caddy, it'll tell you the adjusted yardage, the adjusted distance for you. So we do include that as well. If you want the adjusted yardages, it requires an Eagle subscription. If you just want the wind indicator, any subscription will give you the weather information.
I think something I also talking about, you mentioned about previous shots and things like that. I think there's for me, a hidden gem is sometimes I like to see the courses that I played before, and I might reflect on how I played them in the past, or maybe get anxious for a tournament that's upcoming. Can you show the guys, the ladies and gents on the webinar about shot history and stuff like that we have baked into here?
Yeah, so let me
Really cool
go. I'm going to go back to virtual coach here. Let me see. I don't remember what courses he's played. Well, let's go look at Augusta. Why not? So if we go to the Course Explorer, what it'll allow you to do is go search for any course. And if I pull it up, eventually it's going to download community shots and tell me what the community has scored. But it's telling me that the course record at Augusta is a 65 based on 5 attempts, and the average is a 67.6. But if you've played that golf course before, you can click on this. It's going to show you your performance, right? So where you've hit tee shots, what you've scored, and average. So like as I go from hole to hole, now this is Dustin Johnson. So we tracked his rounds as part of the Masters, but it's going to show you everywhere he hit a golf shot and what he scored. So if I go to the second hole, right, he had 2 eagles and 2 pars at the Masters when he played this hole. So he averaged a 4 on those 4 attempts. But this is useful when you're starting to talk about course management and where should I aim. If you've played this course 100 times, you'll see all those dots kind of all over the golf course as you play. You'll see where you've hit it and what you've scored. So that's how you would do it if you want to go look at any golf course in our database, right? And if other people have played the golf course, you'll be able to use that community mode to see what they've shot and where they've gone. In this case, we've only tracked Dustin Johnson's shots, so they're not going to show up there as well. Additionally, if I go do the same thing, let's go here and let's say I'm playing Augusta.
You could also pull up La Jolla. I think that's a course that has a ton of shots.
Oh yeah. So in addition to the Course Explorer, where you could do it like if you're sitting at home getting ready for a round and checking it, we also have round history in here as well. So let's see, preferences, whole history. So when I click on that while I'm playing, it'll actually show me as I'm playing where I've hit tee shots and that kind of stuff. Additionally, the virtual caddy does the same thing. So if I go to hole 2 and hit the virtual caddy, it's going to give me a suggestion for a driver. Now I'm not on the golf course, so that yardage is meaningless in this case with the simulator. But you'll notice it did bring up my previous shot. So that's really one of the benefits of virtual caddy. If you play a course and you play it often, then what it allows you to do when you want to go get a distance or you're trying to game plan from the tee, you just hit that insides button and it's going to show you all of the places that you've hit tee shots in the past and what you scored. So you can very quickly say, okay, does it make sense for me to try to drive the green here or should I lay back? Right? You'll see that kind of that history of where you've hit shots and what you've done with our virtual caddy system. Any other, I guess, quick ones we want to get to, kind of wrapping up here?
So far, I think we've covered a lot of the questions that are in the chat so far, unless anybody's got anything lingering at the end here.
Yeah, so look, I think maybe some of the key points kind of wrapping up, whether you've played 10 rounds with V1 game or it's your first round. I think that post-round summary is a key piece that's going to help you really understand how you're playing relative to a reference to get you to have that focused practice to improve. Like I said, I use that to guide what I'm going to work on every time I play. And then secondly, hopefully you can see how things like virtual caddy and showing some of these features like while you're playing can also help you make better decisions. I don't have it simulated here with like the approach shots, but the virtual caddy with the approach shots will give you a suggested club if you've been tracking club information, but it'll also show you your shot distributions around the green, really help you choose the right club, help you choose the right aim point, make better decisions while you're playing as well. So lots of tools there. If you do have any questions, if you have any feature suggestions, again, if the app is getting in your way on the golf course, please reach out to us. Tell us what you're struggling with. Tell us what that pain point is, and we likely have a solution or a way to make things easier for you. This should be adding to your golf experience and certainly not detracting from it while you're on the golf course. With that said, I think we can go ahead and wrap up on a Monday night heading into Thanksgiving. I think the one other thing I'll say for all of our users as well is we are having a big Black Friday sale right now. So if you haven't already seen it, we're offering 50% off all the subscriptions via our website. So you can go to our website and use, do you remember the promo code off the top of your head?
All caps, Eagle 50.
Yeah, so if you use all caps Eagle 50, it's the best time of year to take advantage of that Eagle subscription. If you want it, it's half off our regular price, get you the most out of the app, get you set up. So we're running that promo at least through Black Friday, biggest sale of the year. So certainly suggest everybody to go take advantage of that while it's on the table. And with that, I hope everybody has a happy and safe holiday here in the States and elsewhere.